I was standing on this porch that morning, the soft light of dawn brushing against my face, when my mother stepped out, suitcase rolling behind her. Her lipstick was too bright for 6 in the morning, her expression too cheerful for the moment I'd been waiting on for 2 whole years. I smiled nervously, maybe even proudly because this was supposed to be our moment, the beginning of something special, the reward for all my hard work, all the late nights, all the saving and planning. But then she said it. Just 3 words that burned through everything I'd built. Your sister's coming. Behind her. My sister Lauren appeared perfectly unbothered, hair flawless, dragging her own suitcase with that lazy confidence she'd always carried. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard. Surely Mom didn't mean instead of me. Surely, this couldn't be happening. I blinked, forcing a smile, my voice trembling as I asked, "What do you mean she's coming?" Mom's tone was so casual, almost airy. "Oh, sweetheart, we decided Lauren should go in your place. She's been under so much stress lately, she really needs this." I felt my chest tighten, every ounce of air leaving my lungs at once. Instead of me, I whispered, "Yes," she said, with that same smile that had comforted me as a child, but now felt like a slap. "You're always so busy with work. You can take another trip later." I stared at them both, my mother, radiant in her travel outfit, and my sister, smirking like she'd won something she hadn't even worked for. My father shuffled out next, silent, eyes averted. He placed his suitcase down beside me, as if hoping I wouldn't make a scene. That's when it hit me. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was betrayal, dressed as family logic. I'd spent 2 years planning this trip, late nights, researching flights, saving every bonus check from work, skipping dinners out just to afford something perfect. Paris, London, Rome, the dream itinerary. I'd imagined showing them the world, taking them to dinners they'd never forget, watching them light up as we walked under European skylines together. But now, standing there in the soft pink light of dawn, I realized the truth I'd buried my whole life in their eyes. Lauren would always come first. I wanted to scream, to cry, to ask why her again, but instead, I swallowed the bitterness. "Let's go then," I said flatly, opening the trunk. "Wouldn't want you to miss your flight." The drive to the airport was suffocating. Lauren sat in the back seat humming along to some pop song, tapping on her phone, completely oblivious or maybe delighting in my quiet fury. Mom was cheerful, talking about Parisian cafes and shopping. Not once did they notice the way my knuckles turned white on the steering wheel. Not once did they acknowledge that I was driving them to the trip I had built. Halfway to the airport, my dad finally said, "Thank you for driving us. Violet, I know this must feel unusual." Unusual, that was the word he chose. I laughed under my breath. "That's one way to put it." Lauren leaned forward, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "You're not mad. Right, I mean. This is so big of you to let me go. You're the best sister ever." I could have slammed the brakes right there, but I didn't. I just smiled. A thin, cold smile. "Of course. Lauren, enjoy the trip." When we reached the airport, I unloaded their luggage in silence. Mom hugged me quickly. "Thank you for understanding." "Sweetheart, this means so much to us and to Lauren." I nodded. Sure, Mom." And just like that, they were gone, disappearing into the terminal while I stood outside the car, the cool morning wind cutting against my skin. On the drive home, the anger began to bloom. It wasn't a fire, it was something colder, sharper. Every mile I drove, every turn of the wheel, I felt pieces of my composure cracking. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I couldn't take it anymore. I went inside, opened my laptop, and stared at the screen at the flight confirmations. Hotel bookings, the tours I'd scheduled, the luxury experiences I'd paid for. All of it, my work, my effort, my gift. Then I started clicking cancel. One by one, the luxury hotels canceled. The private tours through the Louvre and the canals of Venice gone. The prepaid fine dining reservations refunded. The only thing left were their economy flights let them get to Europe. But let them figure out the rest themselves. When I closed the laptop, the silence in the house was thick and satisfying. For the first time in years, I wasn't the fixer, I wasn't the daughter smoothing over the chaos. I was the storm they didn't see coming. Hours later, my phone began to buzz, dozens of missed calls, messages, voicemails. From Mom Violet. What's going on? The hotel won't let us check in. They say there's no reservation. This isn't funny. Fix this now. From Lauren. You are so petty. We're stuck here because of you. Call the hotel right now. I stared at the screen and laughed. It wasn't joyful, it was something darker, cathartic. They really thought I'd fix it. That I'd swoop in, apologize, and save the day like always. But not this time. When I finally answered the phone, my mother's voice exploded through the speaker. Violet, what did you do? The reservations are gone, everything's canceled. I canceled them, I said calmly. Silence, then fury. Why would you do that? Oh, I don't know, I said, feigning thought. Maybe because you decided to take Lauren on my trip. You're lucky I even drove you to the airport. Her voice rose, trembling with indignation. We thought you'd understand. Understand what? That years of saving and planning mean nothing to you. That my effort is disposable, as long as Lauren needs a break. Don't be dramatic. I hung up before she could finish. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty about it. The next few days were blissfully quiet. My phone, off. My house, peaceful. No endless demands. No guilt-ridden messages. No constant feeling of being the second choice. But curiosity is a dangerous thing. On the third day, I turned my phone back on. The notifications flooded in dozens of missed calls, more angry messages, voicemails dripping with entitlement and guilt. From Mom, you've humiliated us. We're your parents. How could you treat us this way? From Lauren, this is so petty, even for you. You ruined everything. And from Dad, quiet but firm, I don't understand what's happened to you. Call us back. I deleted every message without replying. Then I sat by the window, sipping my coffee, and whispered to myself, they finally know what it feels like to be left out. It wasn't revenge for the sake of cruelty. It was the only way to break the cycle, to stop being the one who carried everyone else's happiness on her back. That evening, my best friend Grace showed up, 2 coffees in hand. Your mom called me, she said with a grin. Told me you've gone off the rails. I laughed, really laughed for the first time in weeks. And what did you tell her? That you were probably busy living your best life, Grace said, smirking. I'm proud of you. Violet, it's about time you stopped letting them take advantage of you. Her words hit deep. Because she was right. I'd spent my whole life chasing validation from people who never saw me. Now, I didn't need it anymore. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and realized something I'd never said out loud sometimes. Family isn't the people who share your blood. It's the ones who see your worth without demanding proof. When I woke up the next morning, the sunlight spilling through the blinds felt different, sharper, cleaner, almost symbolic. I sat up in bed and realized I had slept through the night without waking once. No guilt dreams, no restless pacing, just stillness. It felt foreign, like wearing freedom that still needed to fit. But as peace settled over me, my phone started vibrating again. Dozens of new messages blinked on the screen. And despite everything in me wanting to ignore them, I opened the first one. It was a voice note from my sister. Her voice was frantic, breathless. Violet, you have to fix this. You don't understand, Mom's been crying. Dad's furious. And we can't even afford the rest of this trip without those bookings. You embarrassed us in front of everyone. You can't just walk away from family like this. I played it twice, each time. It sounded less like guilt and more like desperation disguised as righteousness. For a second, I almost replied, almost. But then I remembered all the birthdays they forgot. The job promotion they didn't congratulate me for. The times they dismissed my exhaustion with, "You're fine." Lauren has it worse. every apology I'd swallowed came rushing back. Instead of replying, I put the phone down and walked outside. The morning air was cool and honest. I breathed deeply, feeling my lungs expand, and whispered to myself, no more. That day, I took myself out. I booked a day at a spa, treated myself to brunch at a restaurant overlooking the bay, bought flowers that no one would criticize for being too expensive. Every bite, every breath, every smile felt like rebellion in its purest form. By the time I got home that evening, I almost felt human again. But life, I've learned, doesn't let you rest too long when unfinished pain still lingers. 3 days later, they came home. I knew the second I heard the crunch of tires on my driveway. My stomach clenched. Not from fear, but anticipation. I stood by the window, arms folded, watching as they got out of the car. Mom's makeup was smudged. Dad looked 10 years older. And Lauren, usually glowing with entitlement, was sulking like a child who didn't get her favorite toy. I didn't go outside. I waited. A minute later, there was a knock on my door. Hard, sharp, familiar. I opened it slowly. Mom didn't waste time. How could you do this to us? Violet. We were stranded. Stranded in Paris like fools. Do you have any idea how humiliating that was? I kept my voice calm. Almost too calm. You mean how humiliating it was to take my gift and give it to someone else? Her jaw tightened. Your sister needed that trip. You don't understand what she's been going through. I laughed softly. Oh, I understand perfectly. She's been going through not having to earn anything in her life. Lauren stepped forward, eyes blazing. You're just jealous, Violet. You've always been jealous of me. I'm sorry you don't know how to relax and have fun. Jealous, I repeated, feeling something cold and sharp rise in my chest. You took my trip, my effort, my savings, and you're calling me jealous. Dad finally spoke, his voice low. Enough. Both of you. This family is falling apart because of this nonsense. No. Dad, I said quietly. This family fell apart a long time ago. I'm just the first one who stopped pretending. For a moment, no one said anything. The silence stretched until it felt heavy enough to crush the air. Then Mom sighed, rubbing her forehead. You've changed. Violet, you used to be so kind, so selfless. I don't even recognize you anymore. Her words hit me like ice. That's because the version of me you recognized was the one you could take advantage of. Her eyes widened, as if she hadn't expected me to say it aloud. Maybe she thought I'd break, that I'd cry and beg for their approval again, but that girl was gone. They left not long after that, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the frame. I stood there in the quiet aftermath, heart pounding but strangely steady. The next day, my father called. I didn't answer at first, but something told me I needed to. When I finally picked up, his tone was different, softer, tired. Violet, listen. I know we've hurt you. I can't defend what happened. But your mother, she didn't mean to replace you. She thought Lauren needed the help more. It was her way of trying to keep the peace. I took a breath. And what about me? Did anyone think I needed peace? He didn't respond for a moment. Then, quietly, he said, You've always been the strong one. Maybe that's why we took you for granted. His honesty caught me off guard. It was the first time in years he'd said something that didn't sound rehearsed or diplomatic. I don't want us to lose you, he added. You're still our daughter. I know, I said softly, but I'm also my own person now. We stayed silent for a long time. There was nothing left to fix. Some things don't get fixed, they just stop hurting as much. Over the next few months, I stopped calling as often. They stopped asking for help. The distance between us wasn't cold. It was necessary. Then one evening, I got a message from my mother, just a single line. I saw the photos from your solo trip to Italy. You looked happy. And I was... After they'd returned from their disastrous trip, I decided to go anyway, but alone. I booked my own flights, my own hotels, my own experiences. It wasn't the grand family vacation I'd once imagined, but it became something better, my reclamation. I walked through the cobbled streets of Florence under golden light, sipped espresso in tiny Parisian cafes, stood before the ruins in Rome and felt the weight of generations whispering, "You survived, too." I laughed more than I thought I would. I took photos, wrote journal entries, even cried once in a cathedral when the choir sang in perfect harmony. It wasn't just a trip, it was a confession to myself that I'd been living half a life waiting for people who were never coming around. When I returned home, I framed one of the photos. It was me, standing by the Seine, wind in my hair, eyes bright. The caption I scribbled beneath it was simple, finally invited. Because for the first time, I realized sometimes the trip you plan for others becomes the one you take for yourself. And it's always worth it. When I came back from Europe, my apartment felt both smaller and larger at once. The silence no longer felt like loneliness. It felt like ownership. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for a call, a thank you, or a crumb of validation from anyone. I'd gone to the most romantic cities in the world alone, and instead of feeling abandoned, I felt reborn. Still, life has a strange way of testing you just when you think you've healed. About 2 weeks after I got back, I received an invitation in the mail. It wasn't a letter or an apology, it was something worse. A wedding invitation. Lauren's wedding. My sister, the one who had stolen my trip, my time, my parents' affection, was getting married. The invitation shimmered in gold print, elegant and excessive, like everything she did. It read, "Mr. and Mrs. Bennett invite you to celebrate the marriage of their daughter Lauren Bennett to Jonathan Cross on the 12th of June, at the Rosemont Estate." There was no "and family," no "with love," just a formality. I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding. The last time I'd seen Lauren, she'd told me I was jealous of her. I'd walked away then, thinking I'd never see her again. And now, this an invitation, almost as if to test whether the wounds still bled when touched. I almost threw it out, but something stopped me. Not revenge, not bitterness, just curiosity. I wanted to see if the woman I'd become could face the people who made her feel small and still stand tall. So I decided to go. When the day came, I wore a simple black dress, elegant, understated, nothing that screamed for attention. I drove up to the Rosemont Estate, a sprawling mansion covered in roses and white silk ribbons. Laughter floated through the air, glasses clinking, camera flashes popping. And then I saw them. My parents stood near the entrance, greeting guests with polite smiles. Mom froze when she saw me. Dad's eyes widened, his mouth opening slightly before he caught himself. "Violet," Mom breathed, almost whispering my name as if she'd seen a ghost. "You came." I smiled faintly. I did. Before she could say more, Lauren appeared, radiant in lace and diamonds, a bouquet trembling in her perfectly manicured hands. For a moment, I didn't recognize her until she smiled that same smug, hollow smile I'd known my whole life. "Well, well," she said, "didn't expect to see you here." I met her gaze, calm and steady. I wasn't sure I'd come, but I thought, it's not every day my sister gets married. It felt right to see it. She tilted her head, studying me as if waiting for me to crumble. "You look different." "Peace does that to people," I said softly. She blinked, then scoffed, brushing past me. "Don't cause a scene. Violet, it's my day." I laughed under my breath. "Don't worry, Lauren, I wouldn't dare." The ceremony was beautiful, in the way that expensive things are beautiful, grand but empty. I sat in the second row, watching as she and Jonathan exchanged vows under a cascade of roses. My parents sat beside me, stiff and quiet. I could feel Mom glancing at me every few minutes, as though trying to read my thoughts. When the priest said, "You may kiss the bride," I felt a pang, not jealousy, not sadness, but something closer to awe. I wasn't watching love, I was watching performance. I knew that look in Lauren's eyes. It wasn't devotion, it was conquest. After the ceremony, during the reception, Dad approached me. He held a glass of champagne, his shoulders sagging under the weight of too many unsaid things. "I'm glad you came," he said quietly. "It means a lot." I looked at him. I didn't come for them. Dad, I came for me. He nodded slowly, as if understanding something he couldn't put into words. Later, when I tried to leave, my mother found me near the garden. She looked nervous, her usual confidence replaced with something fragile. Violet, she said softly, I know you think I chose Lauren over you. I said nothing. She continued, voice trembling. I did, and I was wrong. I thought I was protecting her. She's always been lost. And you, she paused, searching my face. You never needed me. You were always so strong, so self-sufficient. I didn't realize that even strong people need to be chosen too. Her words cracked something inside me. I didn't cry, but my heart ached in a way I hadn't expected. I spent years trying to earn that choice, I said quietly. All I ever wanted was for you to see me. I see you now, she whispered, and I'm sorry it took me so long. The wind rustled through the roses, carrying the faint scent of champagne and regret. For a moment, I almost believed her. We stood there in silence until Lauren's laughter rang out behind us high, sharp, and hollow. She was surrounded by people, her new husband beaming beside her, cameras flashing like applause. Mom smiled sadly. She looks happy, doesn't she? I looked closer. Lauren's smile was wide, but her eyes were tired. Her hand clutched Jonathan's arm a little too tightly, like someone holding on to the idea of love rather than the feeling of it. She looks like she's pretending, I said softly. Mom sighed, turning to me. Maybe we all do, sometimes. That night, I left before the dancing began. As I walked to my car, the lights from the mansion glowed behind me, fading into the trees. On the drive home, I realized something that settled deep in my chest like peace. I wasn't angry anymore. The betrayal, the rejection, even the disappointment, they were still part of me. But they no longer controlled me. By the time I reached home, I felt lighter. I poured myself a glass of wine, sat by the window, and looked out at the city below. And in that stillness, I thought about all the years I had spent waiting to be chosen, when I could have chosen myself all along. Sometimes, we grow up thinking love is something you earn, something you prove by giving more, sacrificing more, forgiving more. But love, I finally understood, isn't supposed to cost you your dignity. It isn't meant to ask you to shrink just so someone else can feel whole. That realization was the real trip, the one no one could take from me. When I woke the next morning after Lauren's wedding, there was a strange calm in the air. I'd expected to feel hollow or wounded, maybe even a little vindictive satisfaction. Instead, I felt nothing but clarity, like my heart had finally stopped arguing with itself. The sunlight poured through my kitchen window as I brewed my coffee, the smell grounding me. I looked at my reflection in the glass, not the tired, overlooked daughter I used to be, but a woman who'd finally stopped begging to be seen. For years, I thought closure would come as an apology, but standing there with a cup in my hand, I realized closure had already happened the moment I decided I didn't need one. Later that day, my phone rang. It was an unknown number. For a split second, I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. Hello? Hi, Violet, it's Jonathan. For a second, I froze. Lauren's husband, my new brother-in-law. His voice was calm, careful, the tone of someone walking through a minefield. I know this is unexpected. I just wanted to say, thank you for coming yesterday. It meant a lot to Lauren, even if she didn't show it. I let out a small laugh. I doubt that. He hesitated. You're right. She didn't handle it well. But, look, I've heard stories about your family, about what's happened between you. I just wanted to say I'm sorry on their behalf, if that means anything. I didn't know what to say. No one had ever apologized for the way they treated me. It means something, I said softly. Thank you. There was a pause. Then, quietly, he said, I think you were right. About what? About her pretending. I exhaled slowly, my hand tightening around the mug. You saw it too. She's complicated, he admitted. But I love her. I'm hoping I can help her find some of the peace you already have. I smiled faintly. Be careful. Jonathan, peace isn't something you can give to someone. They have to want it. After we hung up, I sat for a long while in silence. Part of me pitied him not because he'd married Lauren, but because he hadn't yet learned what I had, that loving someone who refuses to grow will break you quietly, piece by piece. Weeks passed. The calls from my family grew infrequent. A text from mom here and there, updates about family dinners, church picnics, birthdays I stopped pretending to attend. Dad would send the occasional photo of the garden, a quiet olive branch in pixels. And Lauren, nothing. Until one day, out of nowhere, she called. Her voice was small, thinner than I'd ever heard it. Violet, I need to talk to you. I could hear it, the trembling edge of someone who'd run out of people to impress. I hesitated, every instinct telling me to hang up, but something inside me whispered, listen. All right, I said, I'm here. There was a long pause before she spoke. He left. The words hung in the air like smoke. Jonathan, I asked quietly. She sniffled. He didn't leave. He's just distant. We fight all the time. He says I'm selfish, that I don't know how to care about anyone but myself. Can you believe that? I closed my eyes. The irony was almost too much. She went on, voice cracking. I thought marriage would fix everything. You know, that once I had someone who loved me, all the other noise would disappear. But it's worse. It's like I don't even know who I am anymore. I leaned back in my chair, heart heavy. There was a time I would have comforted her, told her she was enough, tried to fix her, but not anymore. Lauren, I said softly, you can't use love as a bandage for a wound you refuse to clean. What's that supposed to mean? She snapped. Defensive. It means you've spent your whole life being handed things, and every time they break, you blame the people who gave them to you. But maybe the problem isn't what you're given. Maybe it's what you do with it. She was quiet for a long time. Then, in a small voice, she said, I don't know how to fix it. I sighed, feeling something I hadn't expected, empathy. You don't fix it all at once. You just start by being honest. Stop pretending you're fine. Stop expecting everyone else to fill the emptiness for you. There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing, shaky and uneven. Do you hate me? She finally asked. I looked out the window, at the soft light breaking through the clouds. No, I don't hate you. I just stopped letting you hurt me. She didn't reply, I think, deep down. That was the first truth she'd heard in years. When we hung up, I felt lighter again, not because I'd won, but because I'd finally said everything I'd spent a lifetime swallowing. Days turned into weeks, and little by little, something in my family began to shift. Mom started calling without the guilt-laden tone. Dad invited me over for dinner without making excuses for anyone. Even Lauren sent a photo once, her and Jonathan at therapy. No captions, no explanations, just a quiet sign that maybe, just maybe, the cycle was starting to break. And yet, I didn't rush to rebuild what had been broken. Some relationships are meant to be tended slowly, like fragile plants that finally learn how to grow under honest sunlight. Months later, I found myself walking along the same shoreline where I used to cry after every argument, after every rejection, after every moment of feeling unseen. The tide rolled in soft waves, cool against my feet. The horizon was endless, glowing in soft amber light. I whispered into the wind, thank you for leaving me behind. Because it was true, if they hadn't, I never would have learned how to walk on my own. For years, I thought betrayal was the cruelest kind of loss. But now I know it's also the universe's way of forcing you to stop begging for love from people who only know how to take it. Sometimes, the heartbreak isn't punishment, it's direction. That night, I lit a candle on my windowsill, a quiet ritual I'd started after therapy, and wrote in my journal, they took my gift and gave it away. But in doing so, they gave me something far greater, the gift of clarity. I gave up waiting to be chosen. I chose myself instead. I closed the journal and smiled. If someone had told me a year ago that losing everything I planned would lead me here to peace, to self-worth, to freedom, I would have laughed. but standing there in the stillness of my own home. I understood something simple and sacred. Sometimes karma doesn't come as thunder or fire. Sometimes it comes quietly as the sound of your own laughter after years of silence.